Thank you again for watching and tuning in. This is the Sunday School lesson for April the 12th, 2020. And I meant to record this yesterday, but I had a whole lot of schoolwork I was working on and things, so I'm actually recording this 2 days after the fact. Today is the 14th, Tuesday. But we've been studying in Sunday school here at Riverside Baptist Church. We've been studying the book of Nehemiah, and we had gotten up to chapter 4. And this section, chapter 4 through 6, is the section where the wall is actually built. And we're going to see that the old-time enemies of the Jews who were now in possession of the land, and that would be the Moabites, the Ammonites, the Ashdodites, the Arabians, and recently imported Samaritans, craftily and bitterly opposed the rebuilding of the wall of Jerusalem. And they mobilized their armies and marched against Jerusalem. But Nehemiah, with faith in God, skillfully armed and arranged his men and went straight ahead with the work both day and night. And in spite of all the obstacles from all of these people, the wall was finished in just 52 days. Almost a century and a half after its destruction in 586 BC, Jerusalem was once again a fortified city. And I wanted to share that little bit of information from Haley's Bible Handbook, just to give you some more background. And if you recall from last recording from Sunday School on Nehemiah chapter 3, we had saw all of the list of the people, the households. Some were groups by professions, occupations. Some were grouped together by where they lived. But each person was responsible for a certain segment of the wall and for building it and protecting it. And we're going to continue that thought, and we're going to see the opposition, and we're going to see how in every case what Nehemiah does is he stops and he takes it to God in prayer. He seeks God's will in prayer, and God speaks to him and inspires him and lets him know what he should do. And because of that, then he's able to do the right thing, and therefore the wall is completed. So let's look at chapter 4. It says, "But it came to pass that when Sanballat heard that we builded the wall, he was wroth and took great indignation and mocked the Jews. And he spake before his brethren in the army of Samaria and said, What do these feeble Jews? Will they fortify themselves? Will they sacrifice? Will they make an end in a day? Will they revive the stones out of the heaps of the rubbish which are burned? Now Tobiah the Ammonite was with him, and he said, Even that which they build, if a fox go up, he shall even break down their stone wall. Hear, O our God, for we are despised, and turn their reproach upon their own head, and give them for a prey in the land of captivity, and cover not their iniquity, and let not their sin be blotted out from before thee, for they have provoked thee to anger before the builders." So in verse 4 and 5, we have a recording of the prayer that Nehemiah prayed to God after this opposition again from Sanballat and Tobiah. And he stops and he prays to God. And then in verse 6 he says, "So built we the wall, and all the wall was joined together unto the half thereof, for the people had a mind to work." And I want to mention that to you. It says, for the people had a mind to work. And I honestly believe that that's because of his prayer to God. I don't think that had he not prayed to God, I don't think that people would have had that mind to work. But they were motivated to work. And so every chance we see any kind of opposition, Nehemiah is praying to God, and God is hearing his prayer and answering him, and he's given the people the enthusiasm and the ability to work. So verse 7 of chapter 4. "And it came to pass that when Sanballat and Tobiah and the Arabians and the Ammonites and the Ashdodites heard that the walls of Jerusalem were made up, and that the breaches began to be stopped, then they were very wroth, and conspired all of them together to come into fight against Jerusalem and to hinder it. Nevertheless, we made our prayer unto our God." So here he is praying again. and set a watch against them day and night because of them. And Judah said, the strength of the bearers of the burdens is decayed, and there is much rubbish, so that we are not able to build the wall. And our adversaries said, they shall not know, neither see, till we come in the midst among them, and slay them, and cause the work to cease. And it came to pass that when the Jews which dwelt by them came, they said unto us 10 times, from all places whence we shall return unto us, they will be upon you. Therefore said I, in the lower places behind the wall, and on the higher places, I even set the people after their families with their swords, their spears, and their bows. And I looked and rose up and said unto the nobles, and to the rulers, and to the rest of the people, be not afraid of them. Remember the Lord, which is great and terrible, and fight for your brethren, your sons, your daughters, your wives, and your houses. And it came to pass, when our enemies heard that it was known unto us, and that God had brought their counsel to naught, that we returned all of us to the wall, every one unto his work. And it came to pass from that time forth, that the half of my servants wrought in the work, and the other half of them held both the spears, the shields, and the bows, and the habergeons. And to the rulers were behind all the house of Judah. And the rulers were behind all the house of Judah. They were builded on the wall, and they that bare burdens with those that laid it, every one with one of his hands wrought in the work, and with the other hand held a weapon. For the builders, every one had his sword girded by his side, and so builded. And he that sounded the trumpet was by me. And I said unto the nobles, and to the rulers, and to the rest of the people, the work is great and large, and we are separated upon the wall, one far from another. In what place, therefore, ye hear the sound of the trumpet, resort ye thither unto us, our God shall fight for us. So we labored in the work, and half of them held the spears from the rising of the morning till the stars appeared. Likewise, at the same time said I unto the people, let every one with his servant lodge within Jerusalem, that in the night they may be a guard to us and labor on the day. So neither I, nor my brethren, nor my servants, nor the men of the guard which followed me, none of us put off our clothes, saving that every one of them put them off for washing. And so what he's saying in that last verse is that 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, they were working and protecting that wall. And that is why they were able, with God's strength and power, to be able to get the entire thing finished in just 52 days. Now, I want to do something that I do occasionally. I don't do it every Sunday, but if you've ever come to our church on Sunday morning, you know that occasionally I will read the Bible reading from more than one translation. Now, my favorite translation has always been the King James Version. I still believe with all my heart it's the closest to original Hebrew and Greek. I know a lot of pastors, some people who are watching this may disagree. That's okay. We can all have our own opinions. But I have studied many translations. Quite often I do my daily readings from at least 10 translations. And having compared many, many scriptures, I still believe the King James is the closest. And I know I cannot speak Greek. I know I cannot speak Hebrew. But I do know a lot of words in both languages that I've learned through the years. And I believe that the King James is the most accurate. But, having said all that, I do think that some of the newer translations, if they're a good translation and not just a transliteration or a paraphrase, I do believe that some of the newer translations makes it a lot easier for people who do not have the same background that I do and was not raised in church like me. My father was a pastor, and so I grew up on the King James language, so to speak. And so I think some of the newer translations are very good to use occasionally. And one of the ones that I've used, and Brother James Carruthers has used when he preaches here occasionally, is the New Living Translation. And so I would like to take just a few minutes, it's going to take about 4 minutes, to reread chapter 4 from the New Living Translation of the Bible. So this is Nehemiah chapter 4 from the New Living Translation. And if you had trouble understanding some of the original King James, then maybe this will make it easier for some of you. So starting in verse 1 of Nehemiah 4, taking the 3 or 4 minutes to read this chapter over again from the New Living Translation. So it starts out by saying that there are enemies opposing the rebuilding of the wall. So verse 1, Sanballat was very angry when he learned that we were rebuilding the wall. He flew into a rage and mocked the Jews, saying in front of his friends and the Samaritan army officers, "What does this bunch of poor, feeble Jews think they were doing? Do they think they can build a wall in a day if they offer enough sacrifices? Look at those charred stones they are pulling out of the rubbish and using again." Tobiah, the Ammonite, who was standing beside him, remarked, "That stone wall would collapse if even a fox walked along the top of it." Then I prayed, "Hear us, O our God, for we are being mocked. May their scoffing fall back on their own heads, and may they themselves become captives in a foreign land. Do not ignore their guilt. Do not blot out their sins, for they have provoked you to anger here in the presence of the builders." At last the wall was completed to half its original height, all around the entire city, for the people had worked very hard. But when Sanballat and Tobiah and the Arabs, Ammonites, and the Ashdodites heard that the work was going ahead and that the gaps in the wall were being repaired, they became furious. They all made plans to come and fight against Jerusalem and to bring about confusion there. But we prayed to our God and guarded the city day and night to protect ourselves. Then the people of Judah began to complain that the workers were becoming tired. There was so much rubble to be removed that we could never get it done by ourselves. Meanwhile, our enemies were saying, before they know what's happening, we will swoop down on them and kill them and end their work. The Jews who lived near the enemy came and told us again and again they will come from all directions and attack us. So I placed armed guards behind the lowest parts of the wall in the exposed areas. I stationed the people to stand guard by families, armed with swords, spears, and bows. Then as I looked over the situation, I called together the leaders and the people and said to them, "Don't be afraid of the enemy. Remember the Lord, who is great and glorious, and fight for your friends, your families, and your homes." When our enemies heard that we knew of their plans and that God had frustrated them, we all returned to our work on the wall. But from then on, only half my men worked while the other half stood guard with spears, shields, bows, and coats of mail. The officers stationed themselves behind the people of Judah who were building the wall. The common laborers carried on their work with one hand supporting their load and one hand holding a weapon. All the builders had a sword belted to their side. The trumpeter stayed with me to sound the alarm. Then I explained to the nobles and the officials and to all the people, the work is very spread out, and we are widely separated from each other along the wall. When you hear the blast of the trumpet, rush to wherever it is sounding, then our God will fight for us. We worked early and late, from sunrise to sunset, and half the men were always on guard. I also told everyone living outside the walls to move into Jerusalem, that way they and their servants could go on guard duty at night as well as work during the day. During this time, none of us, not I, nor my relatives, nor my servants, nor the guards who were with me, ever took off their clothes. We carried our weapons with us at all times, even when we went for water. Now, one thing I do want you to notice is the King James Version made a note that they did take off their clothes to take a bath. This one did not mention that. So that just shows you how translations can differ. But all of the major things, the most important things, are the same here. And I wanted to reread it in case you had trouble understanding the original King James Version. One of the things I want to mention again in closing, and I'm going to try to wrap this up in just a couple of minutes, is the fact that, number one, we see Nehemiah doing what all Christians should do. Anytime we have opposition of any kind, anytime we have an enemy, whether it's a physical illness like we're going through now in this country and world, or whether it's people coming against us, whatever it is that's coming against us, according to God's Word, we need to first of all pray. We need to seek God's wisdom. We need to pray. We need to study the Bible and get a message from God, and then we need to act upon it. Even the enemy's plans and how they had planned to sneak up on him and all of that, After Nehemiah prayed again, then the people got word of the plans, and they were able, because they knew the plans ahead of time, to frustrate the plans, and they were able to set up this extra precaution with everybody holding a weapon while they worked, and half the people standing on guard, and even the ones working that were not holding a weapon, having a weapon attached to them on their side. That was God revealing to the people what to do. The other thing that I wanted to mention to you here is that so many times we can lose faith, but Nehemiah reminds them. He says, whenever you hear the blast of the trumpet, rush to wherever it is sounding. And then he said, our God will fight for us. We are not in this alone, no matter what the situation. So I wanted to remind everyone of that. The next recording that I make for Sunday school will be taking a look at Nehemiah chapter 5. But I also will be giving you some more background into the whole book itself, and how the book of Ezra, Nehemiah, and Esther, once again, all should be studied together because of how they all relate to one another. So the next time that we get together for Sunday school for this recording, it may take a little bit longer than today because I'll be giving you a little bit more information. But God bless all of you. I'm praying for everyone, and I hope that you're safe. Remember to pray. Remember, God has not given us the spirit of fear, but at the same time, God expects us to use common sense, and He expects us to be wise, and not to tempt Him by doing things that are just dumb. So take precaution. Work as if it all depends on you, but pray as if it all depends on God, because it does, and God will see us through no matter what. Thank you for listening.